But the shaila is that in Chumash, what comes first? Comes first is Soita and then Nazir. But in Mishnayos it goes Nadorim, Nazir, Soita. You have Nazir first and then Soita. So if it's the same reason for the juxtaposition, why are they fakert from each other? So the Kedusha said that in Tersha B'Ksav is the Eibishter's glasses of how he sees the world. Mishnayos is Chachamim who live in the world and they know that it's not a perfect place and sometimes the Avodah has to change according to the way the world runs. Which only changed from the Eibishter's glasses because through, unfortunately, all the sins of history. If things would have been perfect, we'd still be going with the path of Tersha B'Ksav. So what's the word? As far as the Eibishter is concerned, so a Yid may have fell into the mud, a bissel here, a bissel there. You want to put on a nice suit, you've got to first go in the shower. You've got to clean yourself up, make sure you look okay, and then you put on the suit, the jacket, the tie, so mitzad the Eibishter, first there's sur mei ra, you've got to get rid of the ra, you've got to wash yourself up, and then you can put on the nice clothes, vasei tov. So the Eibishter in Torah first writes about the Soita, to see the negativity, and then to learn from that, to be shocked, especially if you see the explosion, to be shocked, and there's such a change within the person that he's machlit to feel better. And then he can take the path of being a Nazir, which is to separate from Mahazeh and just Kodesh Yiyah, to become holy, to become holy. But that's as far as when the Eibishter created the world, he was hoping a person could follow that path. But unfortunately, over time, over a lot of time, the Chachamim of the Mishnah saw it's nicht das way. If he's going to follow that direction, what's going to happen? Our ganze Leben is going to be busy with trying to shake him off from the Soita in Yonim, and he'll never even reach the inyan of becoming Kaddish. He'll be stuck in Sur Meira, our ganze Leben, that the Kenim on the Shalkum will never even start the Asay Tov. So Chachamim said change it around. First is Masech Nazir. You can become holy. You're still stuck in the mud, doesn't matter. Put on the nice clothes. In the martial package doesn't fit so well, but the clothes in the shower. But you know what? If you don't show the person nice clothes, what's going to drive him to take the shower? He has to already put himself, he has to see the nice clothes, he already has to get involved in Nazir becoming Haled. And Fakir, that will help him and give him the strength and the motivation and the inspiration to completely remove himself from the mud. So the mashal would be, maybe he won't put on the clothes right away, but you give them to him, he's ready to put them on, he's half in. He has his legs are he's half going in. And okay, I have to wash myself off, he'll wash himself off. So Azoi, not only he starts to Asay Toiv, he starts to Nazirus, he starts to Kedusha, but that will help him in the long run to get rid of the Ra. And this is the word of Kedusha Adim. Forget about the Ra, don't even get involved. Just be mayor like Beis Hillel. You want to be involved in the Ra to dispel it and destroy that Beis Shammai. You might be there a whole life, and it won't be Geshmak. What will you have to show for it? But if you go to the Derech of Beis Hillel, you just Moisif and Oyer, that's the, at least Bisman HaGolus, that is the path we need to take, especially for the average person. It's a much more Geshmak Avodah, and ultimately you'll see much more Hatzlacha, because you'll have the Asay Toiv, and the Asay Toiv will, without question, help get rid of much of the Ra. There was a Yid who once came to the Rushner. He came into the Rushner for Yechidus, and he said, Rabbi, ich habe gesündigt. Ich habe stark gesündigt, I really felt. So the Rushner says, no. So the guy said, I came here to do tshuva. So the Rushner said, okay, so go out the door and do tshuva. So he says, Rabbi, I don't know how to do tshuva. So the Rushner asked him, and how did you know how to sin? So he says, Rabbi, it's not like I sit down and I make the whole blueprints and the whole plan, exactly how I'm going to sin. So trefzich, it just happens. Without planning, it wasn't premeditated. So it just happened. So the Rushner told him the same thing with tshuva. You don't have to sit down and start making cheshbonos. How can you rectify the past? How can you pull yourself out of the mud? How can you deal with the negativity? No. The same way you didn't draw up plans for that there, you don't have to draw up plans for the tshuva. So chazar, to start doing the right thing, and the tshuva will happen on its own. Mamish, the exact same nekudah. And in fact, we know this was the Rebbe's mahalach. There's so many letters that people would write, all types of issues. We're talking about real issues, not just b'dimyanis, like real issues that unfortunately there's no shortage of bisman agolus. Everybody can relate to that. And all types of issues and questions would be sent and asked to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe is almost always in our path, and he always says the same thing. Masiach das. Don't let it eat you up. It's going to bog you down. You'll get nowhere. You'll get deeper and deeper in the mud. It's like quicksand. It's like quicksand. You'll get further and further caught up in the mud. If I can't be Masiach das, focus on positive inyanim. Azah, you'll be able to climb the ladder. And like we said before, b'derech memela, the inyanim b'tzuim will just dissolve and dissipate and disappear on their own. In fact, there was once somebody wrote to the Rebbe, he was having issues in weight loss. And he tried all these diets, the no-carb diets, the only carb diets, the pickled herring and mashke diet, nothing was working. Garnish took the whole food. And he wrote to the Rebbe that his pashut, he's getting really bogged down by it, he's getting very upset, and it's just eating him up. I'll eat him up, and he will lose some weight. So the Rebbe's answer to him was, this is very unhealthy. It's eating up your mind. You walk around the whole day with a frown, you're upset, there's nothing you can enjoy because you don't like the way you look. The Rebbe said, first thing is in Masiach Das. As of tomorrow, just stop all the plans, all the diets, choose important things to focus on, things that will take time, and automatically you'll be out of the kitchen. Just focus on gute Sachen. And azoi, you'll actually end up losing weight, and you'll be b'simcha, you'll be geschmack. You walk around very soon with a smile on your face. I didn't say all the details, but that was the toichen of the tshuva. So even for such things, and for sure, people wrote about being bogged down by thinking of chatas and urim, and you already have Alter Rebbe's eitzes and Tanya. Dealing with it is not the right way. Some of the tzaddik maybe, but for the average person, it's just going to take us backwards. It has to be fakert. Not the path of Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai is maybe for derech for tzaddikim, derech for loss of love. But Bisman HaGolus, we go like Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel said, you forget about the choshech. The avoid is not to attack the choshech and make it less and less. No. We go a mile of HaKodesh because it's all about spreading the light. It's focusing on the earth, focusing on the toif. And forget about the Ra, and soon you'll see the Ra will dissipate without you even actively focusing on it. Anyhow. L'chaim, l'chaim. L'chaim,
Yeah.
Chana writes that when she was with her husband in the last couple of years of his life, there was a point in time where she became extremely unwell, to the point that she was lying in bed, she had no strength, she couldn't even move. And every night, the Leivik would sit on a chair, a little table, and he had Tillim, and he would say Tillim, and he would cry every night for quite a while. And Rebbe Zechana says she would just lie on the bed, and she would look and watch her husband sitting and saying Tillim with tears. But she says one night, Rebbe Leivik said Tillim, but this time it was with a different tune. There was no tears, there was no sadness. He was saying Tillim with strength and conviction, with emunah and betachan that his wife would be gesund, and I guess then he would be gesund, and everything would be better. Shortly after, her health improved. She got better. And she writes that it's very clear to her that it was that night when the way he was pleading with the Eibush turned, instead of a cryful plea, but to a victorious bakoshet, knowing with betachan that the Eibush would answer in the affirmative. And this is the Zelbazach. Crying with tears, obviously tears have their place. But ultimately, crying over tzara is similar to the path of Beis Shammai. Dealing with the chayshech, even pleading to the Eibishter about it. But then there's another level, which when you completely masiach das, and du stehst hecher from the ganze chayshech, and you completely remove your mind from it, and you consider as if it's not even there. And all of a sudden, the tears stop, the sadness stops, and you say Tillim with a firm, strong, and proud, and happy voice, knowing the Eibishter will help you. I, the chayshech, it's over. The Eibishter, Baal vet ve'aris, and the Eibishter immediately, very soon, will take me out. This idea of a chassid being able to pull himself out of the perhaps negative situations that surround him and be able to stand higher as if it doesn't even exist. Finally, the beer in Chassidus is that Al Hashem Echad, the Eibishter is everything. And the Eibishter constantly puts everything to being. Everything is really just an expression of the Eibishter. And the Eibishter has his hand inside it, playing with it every single moment. And Al goes mit the Kneged. And the moment the Yid steht hecker from the Messiah, and when it macht sich, he makes like it doesn't exist, then the Eibishter takta pops the balloon. It takta ceases to exist. Which is another idea. But that's the Meilen. The Meilen of Beis Hillel over Beis Shammai, to be able to stay above the Chayshech, just to focus on the And then the Chayshech just disappears, like you see in this story. The moment Rabbi Leivik changed his outlook, the Poil, right away, she started feeling better. The Chayshech Taka started to disappear until it basically disappeared. But this idea of a chassid being able to masech das is an idea which exists really on loftier planes, which is to be able to masech das and pull yourself out, not just the tsaros around you, but the gashmius around you, the chumrius. And instead of it being olamis b'pshitas, and a likus b'yischadshus, meaning this that the world exists, that's a given. This that I exist at the table exists, a given. Where God exists, that we have to explain, and we have to try and find room for the Eibishter. But the hashkafa he has to try and reach is just the opposite. And likus, the pshitas and olamis b'yischadshus. The Eibishter is there, and the question is, how does the world come in? For a Yid to be able to ride higher than not just the chumrius and the tzonis, but even just the gashmius of Olam Hazeh. And the Rebbe himself once has a story. One of Alter Rebbe's famous chassidim, Chaz Kudrur, that there's confliction in the sources exactly when he passed away, in the times of the Mittel Rebbe, the times of the Tzemach Tzedek. There's also, as there is conflicting sources with Moshe Vilenker and some others, but the Rebbe Chazed that he came to the Tzemach Tzedek. And he was one of the greatest maskilim in Chassidus in those times. And we know he once came to Lubavitch, and he was sitting in shul, and the Tzemach Tzedek came in shul for the Kriyas Torah and for Haftarah, and he blew the tkiyas, and the ganze Zeit, Chaskel Drew was busy in the corner of shul thinking Chassidus. The Tzemach Tzedek blew tkiyas, davening basically finished, and all of a sudden he snaps out of his reverie and he asked the guy next to him, "When's the Tzemach Tzedek coming into shul?" He was completely not involved. He had no idea what was going on around him. But the Rebbe once chazered that he came to Lubavitch. It was before Pesach, and the minig, I don't know for how long this existed, but to help the guests, they came to Lubavitch, but the people didn't come with their own matzahs and wine and things like maybe some people did, but many probably didn't. So the Rebbe, the Gaboyim, would give out to all the guests, to their residents where they were staying, a little box of food for Pesach. I guess the necessities, maybe a little bit extra. At least they shouldn't starve and go hungry over the couple of days they're going to be in Lubavitch. Chaskel Drew came to Lubavitch, and he was exhausted, he was tired, and he found his box of food where he was staying. He opened it up and he just he put some things in his mouth. He ate, and he got right involved in davening and learning. Anyhow, it was Erev Pesach, and he came to the Tzemach Tzedek, or his Rabbi, and he said, "Listen, Pesach's coming, I didn't bring anything with me. How am I going to, I need some matzah, some wine, what should I do?" So they told him, "He sent you a box. No, I'm showing you again, we gave you something." He's like, "Oh, the matzah and the wine, that was in the box that I ate?" He had absolutely no idea what was even in the box. Anyhow, the Tzemach Tzedek said, "No, come to me for the sake." He invited him to his house and he took care of him. So he saw he had the food before Pesach, he was even more food on Pesach. And the Rebbe chazered this story, and the Rebbe said that he was so selfless, his whole metzius was a metzius of getlichkeit and godliness. It took over his whole being, his whole consciousness. And the Mendel, when he put food in his mouth, he didn't even realize what he was eating. In fact, he told the Tzemach Tzedek, "It's amazing, because after I ate that, thinking back, the learning that night was like never before." And the Stam was a gift from the Rebbe, the Rebbe's Chotzes, hat Masach geholfen in learning in Avodah. So Al Kaponim, and you find this by many of Al Rebbe's Chassidim, the power just to stay higher completely above even in Yonam Gashmias, that the whole world is Kamat Nochlei for Smoka. And there's stories upon stories from Al Rebbe's Chassidim, but one of the things we could learn from there is, if we're not going to stay hecher, then the Gashmias of the world, and maybe not of the Chuminis of the world, but maybe Akaponim of the Tzodas of the world. And when someone has a Gisel Choshech Harumeh, and there's some negativity and then hardships, and we're talking about Choshech that the Torah calls Choshech, it's not a hard. But you can either take the path of Beis Shammai, which is to tackle the Choshech head on, give it a chshivus and try and beat it up. It's a difficult avodah, and who knows if it'll come out on top. The path of Beis Hillel is completely avoided. Make it like it doesn't exist, just be made, just focus on the light. Put more and more light, and the choshech will dissipate on its own. There's another Nakuda which on the one hand stands alone, on the other hand very much interconnected to our previous discussion. We celebrate Chanukah as if it's such an enormous, gigantic miracle, which it most definitely is. On the other hand, we have a story in Gemara with Rabbi Mendel, and he had vinegar, a candle burning on vinegar as if the vinegar was oil. So is there much of a difference between the Chanukah miracle we commemorate, where the oil just lasted for longer, and his miracle where there wasn't even oil in the first place, it was vinegar that lit? If anything, perhaps his miracle is great. Chanukah maybe is just a miracle in quantity. The oil just stayed. Whereas by him it was vinegar, it was a miracle in quality. And yet, they made such a shturim about Chanukah, but didn't the miracle happen at other times? Take Kriyas Yamsuf. We also have in Gemara. With Rabbi Pinchas ben Yoyer, he made the river split. Yaakov, he made the river split. It's just a remez, it's just a drush, it's a remez in the pasuk. It's a story in Gemara. A Kriyas Yamsuf, it's a miracle that we commemorate in the Torah. So the shaila is there a fundamental difference between the two? And the answer is, oh boy, of course there is. Yaakov is a tzaddik. Pinchas ben Yoyer is a tzaddik. Rabbi ben Dois is a tzaddik. For the Eibishter to Meshana, the Teva of Bria for a tzaddik is nicht kein Kunst. A tzaddik, Bechlal steht hecher von ganz Olam Hazeh. A tzaddik is like Rabbi Hillel Parasha famously said. A yid is mugbul. He's limited in his conscious self. Yeah, the etzem and Hashem is not, but the naran, the nefesh, ruach, and Hashem, and agul is mugbul. It's mugbul. A tzaddik, Dr. Hillel, is bligvul. But he's stuck in being bligvul. He has a very hard time relating to someone who's mugbul, because it doesn't exist in his world. And a Rebbe said that Hillel is bligvul b'sech gvul. Which is also based on a Yerushalmi that compares one of the great Tanoim to the Aron HaKodesh. Because Aron HaKodesh is a similar thing. It's something which is completely, it's a miracle, it doesn't take up any space, not that you could measure the space. It's a bligvul b'sech gvul. And that's what a Rebbe is. Like upon him, a tzaddik is built-in mugbul. He has no limitations. So for Yaakov, for Pinchas ben Yoyer, for Chanina ben Doisa, anything could happen. And don't raise your eyebrows. It's perfectly normal. But when the Eibishter made Kriyas Yamsuf, he made it for every single Jew. And if somebody wasn't worthy, it wouldn't have happened for him. What would have happened? Maybe the Eibishter would never have made him leave Mitzrayim, or maybe something would have happened to him by the Yamsuf. The fact that every single Yid went through means every single Yid was worthy. Even the Yidden that not too long ago were busy serving Avodah Zarah. Moshe told them, Mishchu chulachem, so Mishchu yedechem in Avodah Zarah. You're talking about Yidden who were in Mentes Shari Tumah. And then all of a sudden, by the Yamsuf, Yeder Yid is Zakai, every Yid is worthy for a miracle. That's just unbelievable. That's just mind-blowing. It's baffling. So too by Chanukah. The menorah has to be paid from the money of the tzibur. Anything born in the base of Mikdash comes basically, almost everything, the vast majority comes from the tzibur. The pockets of the tzibur. We know about the story of Kairach, that Moshe asked the part of the korban tzibur, which Kairach and his men have ownership over, shouldn't be consumed by the fire. When a korban gets consumed in the base of Mikdash, every single yid has a chelik. And if the oil in the base of Mikdash had a miracle, it means every single Yid had a shaykhus to that miracle. Every Yid became shaykh for the chaymitz to light. It wasn't just for the Chanina ben Dois over there. It was kol echad ve'echad. This had absolutely no shaykhus to the miracle of Chanina ben Dois. It's worlds apart. And therefore it's commemorated every year. And the Hayrah of this is obviously very, very stark. That every single Yid was a part of the miracle, and every single Yid was by the Eibishter Kedai to have a shinui in Teva for him. The Kotzke has a famous word on the Gemara says in Halacha is there's certain oils, there's certain wicks, which is also to light with them on Shabbos, on Friday afternoon for Shabbos, because if it doesn't take on a good flame, you might play with it Friday night, as it happened to one of the Tanoim, and you'd be chayiv for mavir, for burning on Shabbos. But what about on Chanukah? Can you use those same wicks and oils on Chanukah? So it's machlokes in Gemara, and there's reasons for both sides. But the halacha is that you can. Shmein mupsilus, that ain't madlikin ben b'Shabbos, madlikin ben b'Chanukah. And the koshka tait, you know what we're talking about? We're not just referring to the candle and the menorah, the physical flame. We're talking about a person's neshama, which is the candle of the Eibishter. And a candle has, you have a bowl, and you have a wick, and you have oil, and you just have to put the flame in. There are certain, just like you can have a candle which is no good, the wick's no good, the oil, you can have a person's neshama which is mamish bagolus inside the yid. And the yid in his conscious self is not even aware that he has a neshama inside of him. And his neshama is begging to be lit, to have a flame in it, but nothing doing. One Shabbos goes by, another Shabbos goes by, ein madlikin behem b'Shabbos. Something's just not working. All the special times of the year are coming, and the person is not getting inspired, not getting aroused. Silus u'shmein she'ein madlikin behem b'Shabbos. But even those neshamas, madlikin ben Chanukah. When Chanukah comes, the person gets inspired, he gets aroused. And the Kotzker said it happens every single year. People have inspiration on Chanukah that didn't happen an entire year. And he says the reason is because in the first time that it happened. By the time of the Maaseh, there were so many Yidden who were named Misyavnim. They were learning Greek philosophy. Greek philosophy was extremely attractive, still attractive, and a lot of Yidden were following that and the way of life. Misyavnim, hanging out with the Greeks. But when the miracle of Chanukah, when the war happened, so many Yidden were nis'oired and were aroused because they saw a miracle. The war was also with different levels of miracles, but it was an astounding event. And many Yidden saw, metaphorically, they saw the hand of the Eibishter helping the Yidden. And that was ma'oir them. Years had passed of Shabbosim and Yom Tov and other events, nothing turned them on. They were sinking further and further in the lifestyle and culture of the Greeks. But many of them were just shaken out of their slumber by the miracle of the Mulchama, and many even did Shuvah. And because of that, we were able to have the miracle of the oil. Every Yid has a chelik in the oil, with every Yid worthy of a miracle. So many Yidden had Yidden Shuvah, you can't even imagine. And the Hayrah of this is that Amal, you have somebody who thinks, Mi ani, Mo ani, you know, the Abish demands big things, the Rebbe demands big things, but that's for people who are bigger than myself. Somebody like me. Was can ich schon aufnehmen? You know, who am I? Who am I? It's like the Batchonim make fun of the parent who tells the child, do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? Sounds like they lost their identity. They lost their mind. Do you know who I am? Who am I? Who am I? And we can so easily not realize our potential and undermine and underestimate ourselves to what we're shaykh to accomplish. In fact, the Rebbe once said that even if something happened by Tag, the person was nichshul, Rebbe was nichshul. He stumbled, he fell, but he has to pick himself up. Visha und far weiter. To rinse himself off and just continue going. And the Rebbe said, even if he was nichshul, Rebbe was nichshul in it. Not the Drais or whatever said the Rebbe, but he has to have his shir chassidus that day. And he can't say to himself, I feel so soiled. How can I come and do this? This is the old Chassidish Avara, the Bahasar Satan Ufaneinu Me'achareinu. Remove the Satan from in front of us, remove him from behind us. What's the pshat? Remove him from behind us, from behind me. He's coming up behind me, and in front of us, I understand. He's constantly coming to me with new and new ideas. What does it mean from behind us? So Chassidim explained, it means exactly this. When somebody has finished, he's picked himself up from his fall, but he thinks to himself, my shaykh to climb the ladder, and my shaykh to accomplish. I know exactly what I did yesterday, and the day before, and the day before. That fact is something from behind. He comes from the past. The Satan of the name is the Satan of the future. Every second, he comes more and more. The Satan Me'achareinu is the Satan from behind, and he comes and he reminds us. Remember, you fell through over here, you fell through over there, and now you're the guy who's going to try and do kach in mitzvahs, as if you're holding there. Don't fool yourself, don't fool other people, be honest. You see from the Chanukah story, guys, people that were sinking in the quicksand of Greek culture. They pulled themselves out, and they were disowned. The Eibushter told each and every one is roy for a miracle, the shini of Teva, that the light should burn, and every little chelik in that light. L'chaim, we should never underestimate ourselves. And Chosh, Sheva equals Tzaddik to come, and Tzaddik can also fall, but it keeps getting up. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. That's what we have to remember the idea of Bishop and Farvaiter, to be able to rinse ourselves from the past. As Simon said before, Masiach Das, don't even get involved in that. Just start focusing on good. And then you'll be surprised how high you can climb, despite what happened yesterday, or even what happened today in the morning, today in the afternoon. Gadol, Chashmonai, Ubanav, all these descriptions about the family. His name, Matisyo, who's his father, Chashmonai, Ubanav. What's the whole thing of this historical, the family background of the Mishpacha? The reason we were able to have an Rabbi B'Yad Ma'atim and Geberim B'Yad Chaloshim is because of the Achdus that the Chashmonoim had. There were Taka Ma'atim, there were very few of them. Rashi said in Zoy Sabrach, the Yud Beis, 12 children of the Chashmonoim. The limits is to 12. Pashas, they weren't all brothers, so we're counting extended, and even the extension stands at 12. About more than 100 years ago, maybe it was the Yidishisten, Maskilim, they made a play. And in the play, they had all these Frum Yidden people dressed up as Frum Yidden, and they were being addressed by the Kohen that was speaking to them before they go to war. And the Kohen says, Yoreh V'rach Aleivov, whoever's scared, for this Avera, that Avera, and the Kohen. The joke was the Kohen sent out a big mitzvah and a couple of guys left. Then he got to more refined mitzvah, and more people started leaving until when finally he finished his whole drasha about who's ready for war. There were two people standing. One person dressed up as the Vilna Gaon, and the other dressed up as the Shagas Aryeh. This was the big play to poke fun, obviously, at Frum Yiddishkeit. And they told the story to the Chaim Brisker. He said, I don't get the joke. That's taka what happened. That's taka what happened by war. Who do you think went to war? It wasn't those that were Gibber, the Gashmias. It wasn't those that they were small bekamus, small in number, and they didn't have big muscles. It was the Vilna Gaon and the Shagasari said to the that went to war. Everybody else taka went home. It's not a joke. It's taka what happened. They finally realized that they must spill around to something. They hit the nail on its head. So the Chashmonoim, the good base Chashmonoim. How did they win? So there's a recorded story that when Napoleon came into Lithuania, Napoleon had a keen interest in Judaism. There's a lot of stories about that. And he came into one of the Yiddish Shtettlach, and there was war going on, so people weren't on the streets, people were hiding, but he walked into the Beis Medrash. And in the Beis Medrash was practically empty except for one fellow. He was tall, he looked very wise and intelligent, and he was studying. And Napoleon himself approached him. And this was Reb Chaim Volozhner. And Napoleon himself approached him. And he said, who's going to win this war? He told him, listen, I see you're a venerable sage. And, I'm leading the war for the side of France. You're probably scared to open up your mouth in front of me. Napoleon was not a merciful person. But he said like this, I respect Judaism, I respect rabbis, I respect your knowledge. I want you to really tell me, based on your wisdom, who's going to win this war. And I swear to you, I'm giving you freedom of speech. He came in by himself. He left his soldiers outside. You see, no bodyguards, no nothing, just me and you. I want you to tell me, based on the Chachmas HaTorah, what's going to happen. So Chaim looked at Napoleon in the eye and he told him, let me tell you a story. And he said that there was a fellow who was very wealthy and he coxed in horses. He wanted to get the strongest horses that he could find. He even sent messengers to go to countries overseas. People went to Egypt, different countries, to get the best of the best of the best. And he got one from Egypt and one from, I don't know where good horses come from, but from the best of 4 different countries, and he attached them in front of his wagon, and he was like, I own the world. Look what I have over here. And he was traveling down the road, came into a forest, and it had been wet, and it was muddy, and the horses, they were going over a little bridge, the horses misfooted themselves, they fell off, they got stuck in the mud on the side of the road. The horses are half turned over, and they're just kicking, and the mud's going everywhere, and the wagon getting further and further in the mud. And as this is happening, there's another wagon coming down the same road. with two very flimsy and weak horses, an older one and a younger one, and they're going over the same bridge, and they also get stuck. It was a really muddy, but they got stuck. But very quickly, the wagon driver was able to steer the horses out of the mud and direct them back on track. And this Gvir, who he, with his balagola, are busy getting more stuck in the mud with their four horses, he turns around exasperated and he says, I just don't get it. Your horses look like they can't lift up a face or 1 kilo weight. And they were able, boom, 1, 2, 3, you're able to steer them out. I have the best horses in the world, look at the muscles. And they're getting more farbrengen by the second. They can't pull themselves out. And the wagon driver told the Gvir, you know the difference between our horses are? Your horses, Taka, are mighty and strong, but they're all from 4 different countries. They couldn't care less about each other. Each one wants to show that it's the prime. I'm the best of Egypt, I'm the best of India. Each one wants to show, I'm going to get us out. Each one has their own ideas, and this one goes forward, the other one goes backward, and you go nowhere. Or backwards. But the 2 horses I have, the Taka, one of them is old, the other one is young, they don't have much strength. But it's a mother and the daughter, a mother and the son. And therefore they're able to work together. They might be much weaker. They're able to get us out of the mud. And Chaim Volozhiner told Napoleon, your soldiers are much more well-trained. The training they got, the strength that they have, the tactics they have, the weapons they have, the ammunition is far more advanced than Russia, which was the era poor compared to France at that time. But he said the difference is, by all of your soldiers, no one cares for the other. Each one wants to prove, I'm going to get when I come back, I'll get a star and a medal, I'm a hero of war. Whereas in Russia, they all fight together for Mother Russia. They're all fighting for the motherland. They're all fighting for their families, for their gesund. They're on the defense. They're just all fighting for their lives and keep each other alive. Where each soldier wants to prove greatness, look what I accomplished, look what I conquered. You may be stronger, but Russia, because they're united, they will win. And Napoleon accepted this from him, he kept his word, and he said nothing. And he traveled. And he got as far as Moscow, as we know in all the history of Haftal Tavis. About Rebbe gave Nevuah that he would backtrack right away, and he did. And he came back from Moscow, heading back to France. He went back through Lithuania. And he came back to the town, he came back to the shul, and he saw Chaim Volozhin. And he said, you are on the ball. I want to give you a gift. He took off his shirt, silk shirt, and he gave it to him as a gift. And it was used as a mantle in the Sefer Torah for generations, until it was lost in the Holocaust. So, what's the know of the story? The Chashmonoim were Taka, Yud Beis Chashmonoim. How did they win? Matisyo, Ben Yochanan, his father was, there was a family, there was a father, there was a son, Chashmonoim, Bonav. And because of the Achdus, when there's Achdus, you may be small in numbers and weak in strength. But there's no limits to what can be accomplished. You're weak in strength on your own. When you come together, you become a new Mitzvah. There's a famous one, the Drashas Haran, one of his Drashas is, you can have 10 people, a bunch of Chaitim, but when they come a minion, each one leaves his Mitzvahs. You become somebody else. You become somebody else. That's why when Moshe said, Shimona HaMoirim, every Yid was a Moir. When they come together, they're untouchable. And that's why Moshe was punished by the Eibush. What the Ram says in his Drasha. And this is an incredible hurrah to take out from Chanukah. You could be ma'atim, you could be chaloshim. But when we're zusammen, there's no limit to what you can come. You can destroy the fiercest army in the world, the Gashmias and Beruchnias. In fact, it was finished as a halacha. There's a famous Magen Avraham towards the beginning of Hilchas Chanukah, where he says a very chassidish halacha. And there's a big machlokes apostle which applies everywhere, just like Chanukah. And that is somebody who doesn't have, someone who has just enough oil for every night of Chanukah, exactly enough to light the right amount of candles, and will burn for the exact amount of time. But his neighbor across the street had garnished. Says the Magen Avraham, just light one every night, and make sure your friend lights one every night. Are you going to lose out on your hiddur? Better you give up your hiddur so your friend can have the ikr mitzvah. And there's a big machlokes apostle that apply elsewhere. Some say only Chanukah, and there's a lot of lumdus why that is. But the Eliyah Rabbah takes this for all mitzvahs. It's an amazing idea. Your hiddur, you want to be machmir. If your friend needs the ikr mitzvah, you got to give it up for him. So those that say it only applies by Chanukah, the reason Al Derech HaMusar could be because this is what Chanukah was all about. The Achdus of Chanukah, they were ma'atim, they were chaloshim. Aber wenn wir kommen zusammen, there's no limit to what we can accomplish. And it's